National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batohi, continued her testimony at the Nkabinde Inquiry today. Earlier this week, Batohi told the inquiry chaired by Justice Bess Nkabinde that some elements of the evidence submitted by Advocate Nomgcobo Jiba is in the racketeering application presented as sworn testimony had not been taken under oath. Batohi's testimony forms part of a broader examination of the South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office. All right, Nqobile Madlala is joining us currently. Nqobile, today we've been seeing the continuation of the NPA chief, who is at the helm really of raising some of the alleged misconduct by Advocate Chauke, and this with the precedent that had led to the suspension of Advocate Chauke. Just take us through some of the highlights from today's Nkabinde Inquiry.
So, Katleho, the very focus that has been looked at quite closely has been the case of General Johan Boen and the Ketamana unit. So today, what they've done is they've basically looked at whether or not that evidence that was produced was in fact substantial. And what they have found at this point is that not quite. In fact, when we heard Advocate Shamila Batohi speaking about the evidence itself that was produced, she says that some of the evidence that was produced were not signed, it was hearsay, so it wasn't enough to substantiate with regards to what was going on. Further than that, they now speak about how that same evidence was then taken up to the national office to try and get that racketeering certificate, now specifically from Nqobile, who was at the time the National Director of Public Prosecution. Now we understand that because of the fact that there are certain stages that one has to go through, this meant that the team that was prepared for investigating the KwaZulu-Natal murders, or the death squad as they say, was basically going to the office to look and to speak to the deputy. And the deputy, when he looked at the evidence, he said, but it was lacking the important statements that will show that in fact it was substantiated. So as a result, Mark Adam was the one that said that there was something wrong with that evidence. He would later highlight it with Nqasana, and Nqasana also looking at it and even questioned why was then the NDPP in KwaZulu-Natal sidelined. So these were some of the issues that they were highlighting, and because of the fact that they felt that the DPP in KwaZulu-Natal was sidelined, they then questioned why was then Chauke the one that was in charge. Now if you look at the fact that he went and he spoke to the national office, that contradicts what he had said in the beginning. He says that he was just a mere coordinator, that he did not interfere in any form and in any way, but he is identified as the person that was in the forefront of all of these conversations. But I want you to listen to what was coming out of that conversation a little earlier on.
It was agreed that Council should therefore, in the meantime, prepare the application for leave to appeal, while Chauke would brief the NDPP, Mr. Nqasana, who in the meantime had been appointed the NDPP, about the need to appeal the judgment and to obtain his consent. After the meeting with Council, Chauke again reiterated to us that he will call Dr. Ramaite, the head of NPS, and his direct supervisor, and also brief the NDPP accordingly. I was not made aware of further developments thereafter concerning the appeal process.
So today, this means then that they bring a close to this chapter of General Johan Boen's matter and the Cato unit. But now what this means is they now look at the Madlala matter, which is what we're expecting them to start with tomorrow. And you'll remember the Madlala matter really just is central to the case around the murder charge that was pulled out. And we remember that there was an inquest that was put forward, and there was actually Ramokhebe, that was killed, and and he had come to the police and told them that he actually needs assistance, and he had spoken about the fact that there was someone who was trying to kill him, and he would let it pass away. So we are expecting that the inquiry will now focus on Ndluli, as they have now closed the Johan Boysen's chapter. But before they closed it, there was a question around whether or not there was no evidence with regards to Johan Boysen's case, or whether there was less evidence, or rather evidence that they couldn't use at the time, mainly because Justice Nkabinde was asking that in terms of the evidence that they're looking at certain documents that have been provided. What does that mean? Are we saying that that evidence is not good enough? And we know that at that time we heard from Advocate Shamila Batohi saying that perhaps there was not sufficient evidence, and not necessarily that there was no evidence at all.
At the meeting, Mr. Nqasana referred to an email he sent to Advocate Chauke requesting a written brief or explanation as to why the Boysen matter was being dealt with by the DPP South Gauteng, Advocate Chauke, whereas the matter arose in KZN. This, with respect, is the first time we have it on evidence and information gathered that the top leadership of the NPA questioned how it was that the Boysen case was being handled by Advocate Chauke, whereas Advocate Noko was the DPP of KZN. Advocate Mosing states that Advocate Chauke explained that he attended a meeting in 2012 and the then acting NDPP Jiba and the former acting DPP of KZN, Advocate Molochwa, and that he was requested to assist with a team to prosecute the matter. However, on evidence and information gathered as dealt with in this supplementary legal opinion, Advocate Chauke grossly misrepresented to Mr. Nqasana what his role was with the Boysen case.
So if you look at that evidence that was provided there by Advocate Shamila, you understand that she's really just speaking about the fact that there was evidence that was provided in the deputy's office in terms of the directors. And when we look at that evidence that was shown, it does say that Advocate Chauke was actually the supervisor, which again contradicts the part where he said he was just a mere coordinator. Now we know that the evidence that is being led at the moment is looking at what Advocate Shamila Batohi is putting forward as those things that were questionable with regards to why she ended up writing the letter to the president. But what we also know is that from the defense side, they have highlighted that they actually going to be bringing in as a witness to speak about these issues Nqobile to also outline exactly what really happened there. So we are expecting, of course, that they will be continuing to the Ndluli matter, and then we'll be able to see the cross-examination for the defense side.